April 15th is just another day this year. It won't be the normal deadline, though, for filing your taxes. It was extended until July 15th because of the economic fallout from the coronavirus. With us now to talk about the implications of this bill is tax expert Dan Pilla. Welcome, Dan.
Hey, Mark. Thanks for having me. How you doing?
Doing well. Thanks again for your help today. What were the most significant temporary tax changes in the economic relief law?
Well, what happened even before the economic relief law, Mark, just to pull on the string that you laid out with your introduction there, is the changes to the filing deadlines and the payment deadlines. It's very important for people to understand that now the filing deadline is not April 15th, it's July 15th. So you have until July 15th to file your tax return, and Mark, the IRS granted an extension of time to pay. So you've got until July 15th to pay the taxes as well without penalties, all right? So the filing extension and the payment extension come without penalties or without interest as far as that goes. So that's very important to understand. But there's secondary extensions that are available as well, Mark. If folks can't pay their taxes by July 15th or can't file their returns by July 15th, there's other strategies that are available to get you even more time if you need it.
And Dan, I understand there's a measure in the law that actually lets people withdraw up to $100,000 from their IRA and repay it within 3 years without tax consequences. Talk about that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That came with the CARES Act, Mark. That's the act that was signed into law here on Friday the 27th. And that does allow withdrawals from an IRA or a 401k, penalty-free withdrawals up to $100,000. There's a whole series of reasons why you can withdraw the money if you've gotten sick as a result of coronavirus, either diagnosed with tested positive, or you actually come down with the disease, or a family member has, or if you've lost work as a result of it, if you've been laid off out of work completely, or your hours have been cut, you can take some money out. If you've got to use the money to pay medical bills in connection with the coronavirus, there's a number of factors. And so as long as it's an IRA or a 401k, which is essentially money that you've put into the plan to begin with, you can take that out without penalties, and then you've got that payback period that you mentioned. So that's an important factor, Mark, in this thing, because there's going to be a lot of people that are going to have to draw on savings to get through this situation. Now, there's so many folks. I just talked to my brother yesterday. He's a jewelry salesman. He works out of Chicago, and of course his industry has been shut down completely. And he's talking about drawing on savings now to get through this over the next 4 or 5 months. And so that's going to be a big benefit for him and millions of people like him around the country.
Most Americans, Dan, are expected to get stimulus checks up to $1,200. Now, is that taxable income?
No, it's not taxable income, Mark. But here's the thing about the stimulus check. You're right. It's $1,200 a person. It's up to about. It seems to me it's about. I don't have the number right in front of me, Mark, but it's $75,000 of income for an individual, $150,000 of income for married filing separately or jointly, and then it phases out from there. It starts to phase out. So by the time you get to $99,000 of income for an individual, or about $190,000 or $195,000 for a married filing jointly couple, it phases out completely. You don't get it. But the key is this: you got to file a tax return, Mark, to get the money. It's going to be based either on your 2019 tax return or your 2018 tax return. All right. So either return. If you haven't filed 19 yet, okay, fine. As long as you filed 18, it's going to be based on the 2018 income. If you haven't filed either 2019 or 2018, I would say get on the stick and get that tax return filed, because if you don't have the return in there, then you're not going to get the stimulus, because that's what it's based on.
Let's go ahead and refresh our viewers. So normally you can get an extension by, paying your taxes if you can't pay by April 15th. You talked about an extension past July 15th. Can you clarify that again for us?
Yeah, exactly, Mark. There's 2 extensions that folks need to be aware of. If you can't file your tax return by July 15th, that's the extended deadline now. If you can't file by then, you can submit IRS Form 4868. That's called an application for an automatic extension of time to file your return. That gets you 6 more months to file the tax return, Mark. Now, there's a little confusion about this on the IRS's website. They say it's 3 months to October 15th, but when I read the regulation, it clearly says 6 months. But at the very least, Mark, if you file that form, you're going to get at least until October 15th to file the tax return without further penalties. If you can't pay the taxes by July 15th, the extended deadline, then you've got the option to seek an extension of time to pay. And this is something the IRS never talks about, Mark. This is one of the best kept legal secrets there is in the IRS system, is the fact that you can get an extension of time to pay your taxes beyond the July 15th deadline. And that's done with IRS Form 1127. Form 1127 is called an application for extension of time to pay the tax. And if you submit that by the due date, now July 15th, you can get up to 6 additional months to pay the taxes. But Mark, the key there is this is not automatic. You actually have to make a showing in the form that payment of the tax would cause undue hardship. And the definition of hardship, Mark, is the inability to pay necessary living expenses. Well, I'm sure you'll agree with me, and I'm sure the viewers will agree with me, that's what's going on right now certainly is hardship by that definition. So I expect that if you've got at least a reasonable showing of economic consequences that you suffered as a result of this coronavirus, then you're going to get 6 additional months to pay your taxes without penalties, but interest does apply, Mark. So keep that in mind. Under the 1127, interest does apply. As to the automatic extension from April to July, interest does not apply.
All right, great information. Now, do you expect any permanent changes to the tax code because of the coronavirus outbreak, Dan?
Well, it's hard to say, Mark. I would say that I would certainly say that these IRA changes are permanent. That certainly appears to be the case. The stimulus is not permanent, no question about that. The automatic extension is not permanent, no question about that. The ability to pay disaster benefits to employees under Code Section 139. I don't like to confuse people with code sections, but Code Section 139, Mark, was put in after September 11th, and that allows employers to pay employees disaster benefits, all right? But additional income, additional payments to employees as a result of a disaster, fire, flood, hurricane, September 11th, that's when it was put into the law. And when the president invoked this national emergency situation back earlier in March, that Code Section 139 kicked into place. That's a permanent provision. So it allows employers to pay certain emergency benefits to employees, and the employees don't have to claim it as income, Mark. So that's a key thing. That's a good benefit in the law right now.
All right, tax expert Dan Pilla, thank you so much for all that information. We really appreciate it. Thanks for staying on top of it, Dan.
Hey, Mark, my pleasure, Mark. Thanks for having me. You stay safe now. Keep your family safe, huh?
Yeah, you as well. Blessings, sir.
God bless you.